What if everything we've been told about markets is already out of date? What if inflation, recession, even currency stability are no longer economic cycles, but consequences of something much bigger here? Because right now, we're not just watching markets move, we're watching power shift across borders, across energy systems, across currencies, and into technologies that will define the next decade. And if that sounds dramatic, let's bring this into today's current state. April 6th, U.S. President Trump said a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I'm going to repeat myself here. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. And then just as quickly, a 2-week ceasefire was agreed to between the U.S., Iran, and Israel. Now let's think about that. In less than 24 hours, we went from the threat of irreversible destruction to a temporary pause in conflict tied directly to energy flow through one of the most critical corridors in the world. So when we talk about markets today, we are not talking about abstract risk. We're talking about a world where a single statement, a single post, a single decision, a single negotiation can move commodities, currencies, and entire economies overnight. Welcome back to Markets and Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Lyndsay Malchuk, and today we're not easing into this conversation. Joining me is someone who doesn't just watch those markets, he studies the structure underneath them. Florian Grummes from Midas Touch Consulting has built a reputation for connecting geopolitics, macroeconomics, and market behavior in a way that forces you to rethink what you thought you already understood. Florian, welcome back. Wow, I don't even know where to start there.
Thanks for having me again, Lyndsay. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Absolutely. We are in very interesting times. Now, to start things off, I know that you do have boots on the ground in Dubai, maybe not at this moment, but in overall sense, you do have a place there. You have boots there for sure. What have you been observing there?
Well, I mean, we had 5 wonderful years over there until basically Saturday, 28th of February, when actually not far away from where we were staying on that Saturday afternoon, they were shooting down one of those first drones. I could see it, I could hear it, and I could even feel the pressure in the air from that shot down. It was quite intense, and of course everything changed since then.
Yeah.
It's a complicated picture, of course. Many expats like ourselves have left the city. Understandably, I can tell you that the main issue was less probably the security, but more like just the constant psychological pressure. If you hear
Absolutely.
Alarms and the sound in the air, and that was not nice, right? You were in a constant limbo, so to speak. So I felt much more relaxed once we moved away and left Dubai. Luckily, we got out easily without any issues at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard horror stories of people being stuck there, and then the airport had to close and open up again, and it was quite wild.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I think Dubai is more or less safe at this time. I mean, they have done a terrific job in terms of the defense. I think 92 to 95% of the drones and missiles have been shot down.
Right.
But of course, the city has much less people now. It's rather empty, and it's only the locals and the people who really want to stay there, maybe don't have another option, or just assume that that's the place they need to be.
Right.
I think it's going to be interesting because now, of course, the summer is coming, so it's not getting colder in quite the contrary. It's getting hotter and hotter. So usually, I would say June, July, and August is the low season over there into September.
Yeah.
And of course, businesses, hotel, taxis, whatever you take, any job you take, basically, have already seen tremendous suffering over the last 5-6 weeks. And I wonder if tourism will come back quickly. I doubt it right now, simply because the situation is still very unsafe and unsure. Maybe in October, things might look totally different again. And I mean, Dubai is a place to enjoy. So I would assume that the tourists coming back at some point.
Absolutely.
If overall the situation stays calm and more or less peaceful. But when it comes to the real estate market, I'm a little bit more worried. I mean, it was clear that there was a massive building boom over the last few years. Investors could make tremendous money just on buying and selling properties, but also on cashing in up to 8 to 10% on rental yields, basically. And I assume that this will be much more difficult going forward. Talking about 5 to 10 years from now, I think Dubai will survive. I would not bet against Dubai, but in the short term, yeah, it's still a lot of question marks, I would say. But at the same
Absolutely.
time, if you are not worried about the whole geopolitical situation, I think you can get great deals right now. Most of the hotels offer really good prices,
I
and
bet.
you don't have the usual extreme traffic. I hear from friends as well that they're actually really enjoying their time right now.
And that's the
Weather
thing,
is good.
it's still it's been around for a while, but it's still in essence quite a young, developed area, and they did so much to bring it to where it's at, and to get the word out, and to spread the beauty there. And now for this to happen when they're not, let's be honest, I mean, they're not Iran, they're not any of the direct places. They were, just caught in the crossfires because of what's there. And that's what's the sad part, is that they had no say in any of this. It just became like, well, you're a target now. And that's the sad part. And to see so many people now have to flee from there because they don't feel safe is really horrible. And I feel like a lot of the people in Dubai, my personal opinion, didn't have a say in any of this. What's your aspect on that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's a big macro geopolitics kind of game going on here. I mean, the reality is that the Middle East has nearly always been rather difficult and tricky, and often has seen wars, local wars or regional wars. And the whole situation with Iran basically is a problem since the 1950s, 1960s already. This is long in the making. The same as with Israel. And yes, the Emirates have done a fantastic job to develop this, their country basically. We should not forget that I think a little part of this whole boom has also come because Iran was isolated, and lots of Persian money fled basically to Dubai and to the Emirates and invested over there, or hid it over there, or laundered over there. I mean, it's a complex kind of picture. I
So
hope that
complex.
peace will come back, and that the Emirates can come back to the path that they have been on. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of question marks, and as you rightly said, it's not really in the hands of the Emirati people at the moment. It's rather a big geopolitical game, and of course, as we hopefully all know, in the bigger scheme of things, it's clearly the conflict between America and China that is responsible for this attack on Iran. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, one big factor, right? They're playing so many factors into it, and we could discuss until tomorrow morning about all the different reasons why this war basically started, or broke out again. But it is what it is, and we just can hope that this ceasefire will hold, and that people come to calmer terms here, and find a way to back to diplomacy, because I think otherwise we're
That's
really
true.
staring here in the abyss as human beings on this planet.
Yeah. So when this goes out, it's probably going to be, a few days, maybe a week after the time that this ceasefire happened. But I want to bring this back to something. Now, Florian, when you hear a statement as extreme as the one I said, where a whole civilization will be taken out, never to return again, I mean, that's bold. And I want to know, does that validate what you've been saying about how fragile and reactive this global system has become? Or, actually, the flip side, does it tell you we're actually already operating inside a completely different kind of market environment?
Well, I mean, this statement is, in my opinion, totally unacceptable,
100%.
especially, I mean, on an Eastern Sunday.
With the Easter
you want
Bunny
to see
right next to
the
him.
president deliver a message of love and peace and happiness and unity. But what he did is like, he's a psychopath. He's a lunatic and a psychopath. And I think he totally lost the control with the ground, so to speak. I think since his successful operation with Venezuela, he really thought that he can do whatever he wants. And I mean, it became clear over the last few days that many of the generals or within the military, there has been lots of people being fired, I guess, for the reason that they said, no, Mr. President, this is too dangerous. This is not a good idea what you're doing here. So yeah, I think it's unbelievable. It's unacceptable, and he has to be removed. That is my opinion. He's dangerously about to set the whole world on fire here. I mean, these are all warmongers, and of course, there's lots of interests from different sides in this war, and it's a very complicated situation. So I don't want to take party only for one side, but
Absolutely.
we have to really analyze here. And again, as I said before, there is so many reasons playing into that. For sure, they underestimated the strength of Iran. I think Iran has been playing that for many, many, many years, if not 20, 30 years. They have seen what happened in Iran, in Iraq with Saddam Hussein. They've seen what happened in Libya with Gaddafi. They've seen Afghanistan, Syria. That's why they created this mosaic-like kind of structure where even if you bomb and kill the leadership, there is immediately new structures decentralized in place, being able to continue. And I think they completely underestimated that. 100%. And I guess Trump didn't even listen to the specialists within the White House or within the military.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's stay right there for a brief moment more, because there is a growing narrative that you said that isn't just about isolated conflict here anymore. I mean, there is a real argument building that escalating tensions, especially involving U.S. and Iran, could really trigger the global stagflation. So not just inflation, not just slowdown, but both happening at the same time simultaneously. So walk us through that. What does that actually look like from a market perspective? Hold on, and more importantly to that, how does that show up for investors in real time? Because when we talk about governments or resorting to massive monetary expansion to finance military activity, it sounds big, Florian, but what does it actually mean for currencies or for purchasing power or everyday capital even?
Well, I mean, somebody has to pay the weapons and the soldiers, the military, the movements, the gasoline to move these big tankers around, to send these airplanes over there, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, as you know, basically all governments in the Western world are more or less bankrupt or with huge debts already. Yeah. And so what will happen down the road, and it has already started in the last few days, if you look at the money supply numbers, and this will, of course, intensify dramatically going forward, they will have to, basically print money out of thin air to finance the war, to prop up the military. And this is not going to be only the Americans, it will be the Europeans, it will be the Indians, the Chinese, the Russians. Everyone is now triggered. And of course, the Emiratis will do the same. Everyone will now invest more and more money into weapons and military and build up their arsenal. And so you have the consequence of seeing that all these central bankers will increase the money supply, and they will do this dramatically. Mm-hmm. And we have come to the situation already where the whole system was very unstable. So we have, on the one hand, dramatic inflation, because that's what is coming, or that's the definition of money printing, basically. And on the other hand, I mean, if there's no oil, you cannot run a business. People cannot drive around. They cannot go to work.
That's true.
We've seen already countries like Thailand, South Korea, India, etc. They all suddenly ran out of gasoline very quickly. And at the same time, in uncertain times, people holding back. They will not invest. They will not expand. They will not start a new company. They will much more have a kind of like a mindset that is about to secure what they have instead of expand and create something new. So, and that means we will see stagnation in the economies. A recession is likely, maybe even more like if this war continues or comes back, a depression is very likely. And if you combine depression, recession together with inflation, you get a stagflation. So that's basically the outlook. And in a stagflation, you need to be very careful where you put your money, because on the one hand, you're losing purchasing power if you keep your money in the bank account, thinking that better not to invest in the stock market, because you might lose because the stock market might go down, but you lose the purchasing power on your if you hold liquidity. So
Right.
it's going to be more challenging than the past, I assume. Most investors who are around nowadays have never seen a scenario like this. Of course, one obvious conclusion is that commodities will do really well going forward. I think if you had any doubt about the commodity super cycle, I think I can tell you it's very likely that this war now has confirmed the commodity super cycle.
Wild.
All the countries on this planet will need a lot of copper, critical minerals, even silver, to build their weapons, their military, and also to build what has been destroyed now. So it's going to be quite massive. And we have seen now oil going through the roof. That was one sector that was basically totally forgotten or out of fashion, completely out of fashion and
Yep.
neglected. And it has come back with brutal force. So next part probably will be agriculture and fertilizers and potash and all these parts
Absolutely.
of the commodity mix, so to speak. I think that's the sectors, generally speaking, where you want to focus on. Stock market doesn't have to crash completely, but I think the music is continuing to play in the commodity markets. But it's going to be wild. It's going to be volatile. It's going to be very difficult to trade these markets. Long-term investors will have an advantage here, but within the commodity sector, you also see different cycles being played. So we have seen last year it was all about gold and silver mining. Now the last basically 6-8 weeks, it was all about oil and oil companies. So it will be interesting how this is playing out going forward. I assume people need to really have a decent allocation in the commodity sector going forward. Yes.
You know, you brought up some really great points there. And recently on LinkedIn, I actually broke down this whole Strait of Hormuz thing. And, you know, those oil tankers, they travel at a speed of, I think, 13 to 15 knots, which is about 25, 30 kilometers an hour. And it's the same speed that a bicycle goes at. So if you actually take a look at that and you think about it, you're jumping on a bicycle, you're going all the way down the coast, and then you're going to go, okay, I'm going to go over to Europe, and you're going to bicycle over, you know, the Arabian Sea and down and you're going to get to Europe, all those things. And so you're carrying maybe a stack of something in the basket in front of you or in your backpack. So what we started seeing was there was still a flow coming in, and we didn't see that in the markets quite yet, because what we saw still coming in left weeks before any of this conflict ever happened. So what you're now starting to see is, you know, April 1st, it was, I think Africa first started seeing that there's now no bicycle behind them coming. And then you go up to, you know, Europe, China, they're going to start seeing it just now. And then America will obviously be the later of all of it. But the thing is that the markets haven't thought about all of it yet. They haven't repriced all of it yet. But you know, people start thinking, if they start thinking like, I'm not just looking at the cost of my power bill and my gas locally anymore, because what countries start doing is they don't wait. They start bidding on full economies. And when that happens, you're not just bidding locally anymore. You're bidding against countries. And that's what people are not really thinking about here, is it's not just happening here, and it's not just because of one thing. It's the entire world is now really starting to feel that crunch where there's no bicycle coming behind them. And that's where that inflation is starting to come. But you made a lot of really great points there on your side as well with the stagflation. This is a really interesting time, really interesting. And there's a lot of psychology that comes in with that as well, how the brain functions. When we don't have the certainty, the brain starts creating whatever it's going to create to bring that story together to help us understand it. And at an investor point of view, it's a very dangerous situation to be in because you don't know. You just don't know. So let's move on from here for sure. I want to connect things to something you've said that really stands out. Energy corridors are becoming the real battleground for monetary power. I mean, whoever controls the flow of oil and gas, LNG also starts to influence the currency system tied to those trades. Now, Florian, that's a massive shift in how people think about markets. Break that down for us. Are we already seeing this happen, or are we still seeing that in transition?
Yeah, look, I mean, the core argument or the core explanation is that whoever basically controls the energy, the flow of energy, of gas, of oil, of LNG, they also then control basically the currency system that settles those trades, right? And as you know, for the last basically 5 decades, that has been the US petrodollar. And that was one of the reasons why America was able to live way above its means for many, many years, for many decades, in fact. And we are now seeing this, in real time, not only being challenged, but also breaking down. I mean, Iran started charging fees for the tankers who passed through the Strait of Hormuz, and they started charging that in yuan, in Chinese renminbi yuan, which is obviously the exact thing that the Americans don't want to see and will not accept. And that is, I mean, among the gold bugs, it's not a secret that Gaddafi has been basically killed because he said he wanted to have an African gold dinar and then doing the energy trade in this currency. And the same was basically happening to the guys in Venezuela who sold the oil to the Chinese for Chinese yuan and not in US dollar. And this is now really an inflection point here. That was also from the beginning my thinking that China will not let Iran fall. They will do everything, and you can be sure that they have prepped up Iran over the years massively, and they will continue to help Iran. And as I said initially, in the end, it's China against America. And we have seen 5 decades of US petrodollar. And it could be that this is now shifting if China together and with Iran basically starts controlling the Strait of Hormuz. It's too early to really say that this is going to happen, but there are signs, and I mean that's what it's primarily about. I guess the whole conflict. Right. The Americans need to make sure that nobody else is basically controlling the flow of energy in their currency. So right. and settles the flow of energy in their currency. So yeah, that's the big story. And if it continues, and I mean, I think you can right now make the argument that America has lost this conflict. They had to basically withdraw and accept that Iran has been much stronger than expected. It was not the promised walk in the park, just a few days and we are done here. So if this continues, the world will change completely. And that will, in the end of the day, mean also that since most of the world still doesn't really trust and believe in the Chinese yuan, the Chinese will need to continue to basically inject trust via gold into their currency, right? So it's extremely bullish for gold, of course, and precious 100%. Metals in general, what's going on here. Maybe not so much in the short term, but in the mid to long run. Because that's what it's all about. It's about who basically controls the currency that settles all these energy flows, right?
100%. So how do you think this ties into something that feels completely separate on the surface, like AI and semiconductor dominance?
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to break this wholly very complex story down, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, do you want to be controlled by Chinese robots in 20, 30 years, or do you prefer the American robots controlling you? I think that's where it's, in the end of the day, coming down to the question. It's a very difficult question to answer. I have no real preference other than I've been basically living in the Western world, which was of course dominated by the Americans. I don't speak Chinese. I don't understand too much of the culture and language
Yeah.
anyway. So it's very difficult, but I hope that there is a way forward that both can coexist. History of mankind, unfortunately, teaches us that this is rather not the case. So the Americans will fight to their last teeth, I guess, to remain number one. And the Chinese are very smart and are in many areas, not in all, but in many areas already leading, right? And I mean,
Right.
you mentioned the data centers, which need massive amounts of energy. And again, that's also one of the reasons why I think the Americans attacked, because oil is the Achilles heel of China.
Yeah.
They are really well advanced with critical minerals, the precious metals now, with AI, with lots of things. They are quite advanced, but they still need to import 70% of their energy consumption. And a large and important part of this came through the Strait of Hormuz, especially from Iran and other countries. Of course, Russia is also an important partner to them. And that's where I think the Americans thought that they can attack, basically. Because on the other hand, China has cornered the rare earth market. And if you want to build a weapon in the West, you basically need to call China if they can send some rare earth that you need for your weapons. That's the situation we're in now. Remember I think it was November, December, late December, when the Chinese announced that they also now will not allow silver to be exported, which basically became also a critical mineral because so much silver is being used in weapons. So this is a very complex kind of story here. But it's all about energy, who controls the flow of energy, and then also who controls the currencies that these deals are settled in. And in the very long run is the question who's controlling the world. And it's
So
going to be
do you
very
think
interesting
markets
and
are
very disruptive, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Do you think markets are already repricing this quietly before people fully understand what's happening then?
No, I think as you can see, I mean, markets have been very volatile, very shaky, so to speak, right? I mean, one day hugely up, next day dramatically down. They're always trying to figure out what's going on, what's happening next. And there is a comment or a tweet from Mr. Trump, and markets moving crazy in this or that direction. And then the next day it's all the other way around. I think the market has a hard time right now figuring out exactly what's going on. I was surprised initially that it held up so well. Now we have seen the stock market coming down, precious metals came down hard, oil has exploded. I had a $120 price target for oil. We have reached that. It's all quite intransparent in the sense of there's so much information. It's so difficult nowadays to figure out what's actually true, what's actually really happening, what can you believe and what not. So yeah, I'm more in the defense mode, generally speaking.
I think a lot of investors are sitting in that same space too, is, if we really step back and just really, really look at what's actually going on, markets right now are not running on certainty right now. And we started to see more and more of that. I mean, investors started clarity. They were rewarding clarity over, conviction, all the things. They were looking more at that. Right now, things are so uncertain. If you look at this, Florian, it's influence that is actually moving these markets right now. It's the most powerful man in the world, most powerful man, one sentence or one statement in one post. And those commodity prices were up and down. When he threatens, it goes up. When he extends, it goes down. And people, a lot of traders right now, they're actually not even looking so much at the pattern. They're looking at his phone right now. And they're learning that pattern through his phone. And unfortunately, the influence is so uncertain, but it's the only certain thing right now. And because he's yelling the loudest, he's getting the most amount of attention on the market movements right now. It's very scary, very scary.
Yeah, damn. I mean, it's very questionable what's going on, but it's nothing new. I mean, the markets are manipulated and rigged since probably forever. But it has never been so concentrated on a very few people, or it just one person and his friends, basically.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Let's bring this into real assets then. I mean, there is a strong case right now that we're not approaching a commodity super cycle that you said that we're already in one. So that's driven by geopolitical tension, rising debt, and a level of monetary uncertainty that we haven't seen in decades. Do you agree with that? And, if you do, what stands out to you the most right now?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with it. Again, it's you need to have a different recipe than probably the last 25 years. I think you need to understand the commodity sector. You need to also understand that this is also a cyclical sector, and that it moves within the commodity sector. There's different areas, and while it was very lucrative to play the precious metals over the last two and a half years, the last few weeks it has been much more the energy sector, and maybe it is going to continue the energy sector. I mean, we've seen now a dramatic 5-6 week rally. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants to see oil going through the roof, but only if you are obviously invested in oil companies or owning oil companies, or if you a Saudi sheikh. But generally, the sentiment is still very much against oil investments. So there is a case to be made that this is still the beginning of a big, massive repricing in the oil and energy sector. I think it's very likely the case. I assume currently that the precious metals are in a correction, a consolidation, a healthy one. I think we've seen a spectacular run up over the last 2.5 years, and it is well deserved a little bit of a rest here, and a little bit of a breather. And I would be surprised if metals immediately will chase to new all-time highs from here. I won't rule it out, because we also have to understand that it's so unstable, and big central banks continue to buy, because this again also showed this war that you need to protect yourself. You cannot trust the US dollar. So that will continue. But I assume the metals are probably in a bit of a larger and probably rather complicated and confusing correction and consolidation here. But I don't see like huge downside risk. I think my worst case scenario for gold would be $3,500. We've seen $4,099 Monday 2 weeks ago, but I think that's the worst case scenario. It could well be that they just keep moving back and forth, sideways, volatile over the next few weeks and months. Stock market probably the same. Also, I mean, we have seen a certain amount of panic. So if the ceasefire continues and they really start negotiating with each other, I think the stock market will then continue to recover more. But we are already in early April. Usually, May, June is usually the time where the market's kind of running out of steam. So I would be surprised if we get a huge rally into the summer here. The one thing that is interesting, simply because it has acted rather strong, is maybe stable, I would say, was Bitcoin. If you remember, while we were speaking in South Africa a few weeks ago, I wasn't too excited yet about Bitcoin. It came lower since then. I think the low came in around 60,000, but it has been rather stable during this whole Iran conflict, and we're seeing it now back up above 70,000. I think most of the selling has been done right now. The seasonal factor is rather supportive for Bitcoin into maybe June, July. I'm not sure that this whole crypto winter is over already, but I think Bitcoin probably will see a bounce back to maybe 80,000, maybe even 85,000. That would be at least something. Then we have to reassess in the summer. I think that's my main playbook right now for the markets.
Now, Florian, let's shift into the topic that you have loosely brought up here, and that is Bitcoin, because this is where things get really interesting psychologically, actually. So we've seen Bitcoin, as you said, stabilize after that February panic. I want to take it a little bit further here. Price action has been relatively sideways since then, and sentiment has turned pretty pessimistic. Now, historically, that tends to matter. So let me ask you this. Is this consolidation actually setting up a recovery rather than a breakdown?
Yeah, exactly. So that's my thinking. In a piece that I published, I think it was last week, I said I expect a bounce or a recovery in Bitcoin into probably spring, maybe early summer. Seasonality wise, it's a favorable time for Bitcoin from mid-April into early mid-June, maybe sometimes even into July. Then, as you rightly mentioned, sentiment is completely beaten down. It's extremely pessimistic. Basically, some form of capitulation has happened over the last few weeks. So
Right.
that is clearly telling me there is a chance for a bounce, and and Bitcoin has been very stable given the turmoil in the market over the last 5 weeks. It came down a little bit as well, but if you look at the stock market, how strong it has sold off, Bitcoin has held up rather well. So I think
It
we
has.
are probably seeing a nice bounce here over the next few weeks, maybe next 2-3 months. But I still believe we are still in the crypto winter, and I think we still haven't seen the final lows of that crypto winter.
Do you think because of the volatility happening everywhere else in the markets and you're not seeing as much of that in the crypto or Bitcoin specific market, do you think that there are investors that are now a little bit more keen to look in that direction rather than the traditional, say, silver or gold?
Yeah, I mean, lots of the Bitcoin people have been extremely disappointed seeing gold and silver going through the roof, while Bitcoin moving sideways and lower. And we have seen exactly the opposite for many years when the whole precious metals crowd was completely in disbelief why Bitcoin went through the roof and metals did nothing.
Exactly.
I mean, this is the markets, you know. That's like the music is playing in that corner, and at some point it plays somewhere else. It is what it is. I think traditional investors had the chance to come into the Bitcoin sector over the last few years via the ETFs. But of course, as soon as you're going to see a real rally in that sector, I mean, gear drives people into any sector very quickly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, greed, right? So, I think everybody who wanted to buy Bitcoin and had the need or felt the need to be invested in that sector has done it via the ETFs. Very easy. You don't need to even understand what you're doing. You just buy the ETF. And most of the people who did not understand Bitcoin, did not have any conviction, and were at some point probably severely underwater, just probably sold over the last few months. That's why I'm thinking this market has probably run out of sellers. That's why it held up rather well during the whole conflict. And I think now there's a chance for a recovery or a bounce, maybe back to the falling 200-day moving average. So yeah, there's a short-term trade here for the next few weeks, maybe
Right.
2-3 months. But again, I think in the larger scheme of things, crypto winter is not over yet. I've seen 3 crypto winter cycles, and each one of them ended with a total capitulation and a really nasty final sell-off.
Whoa.
We haven't seen that
Well,
yet. So right now, I assume the final low for Bitcoin will come in somewhere between 50 and 60K, maybe 40 and 60K. And I assume it will be somewhere in October or November. But listen, if the market is doing something else, I'm the first one to admit that my forecast or outlook was wrong.
fair enough.
I mean, you always need to listen to the market. I think that's even more important than anything else. And I can tell you that I became really successful once I was able to accept that I was wrong and shift and do the opposite of what I initially thought that I should do, and just started really to listen to the market and then act accordingly. That's very difficult if you are positioned already and accept like, oh, I'm wrong here. I need to actually turn this around 180 degrees. But once you are able to do that, yeah, success is coming.
So then let's pivot. You know, just like every investor needs to do in their portfolio once in a while, like you said, let's pivot and talk about gold and silver. I mean, they're both rebounded, but it still feels somewhat fragile. I mean, there's volatility underneath that move that doesn't quite signal stability quite yet. So how should investors interpret that?
Well, look, I think gold and silver continue to be in a long-term secular bull market. There is no doubt about. I assume gold and silver will move much higher in nominal fiat terms over the next few years. I think in the short to midterm, we are in a consolidation correction that might continue into the third quarter even. Maybe we've seen the lows already, but I would be surprised if this train immediately starts running higher again after such a massive rally over the last 2.5 years. I think it is a well-deserved little break here, and but that's your opportunity to accumulate and buy more physical gold and silver, because I believe that's one of the best and also simplest investment that you can do. Nothing has changed in the big picture analysis here. So in the long run, gold and silver will move very much higher from here. So I'm buying every pullback physically, gold and silver, yes. I'm a little bit more cautious currently with the mining stocks because I think it might take a little bit longer for this whole sector to come back. But overall, I'm a gold bull, I'm a commodity bull, and I think the best is yet to come.
That's really great to hear. Do you think gold and silver still hold the role as the ultimate safe haven assets, or is that narrative maybe starting to shift in a world where Bitcoin is now part of the conversation?
No, I mean, these are two different things. And I've been always saying you want to hold both. They complement each other,
right,
generally speaking. I'm not as enthusiastic about Bitcoin as I used to be. I think there's a lot of flaws. And I think Donald Trump also did everything to destroy the sector. But that's another topic. No, they can coexist. Of course, again, coming back to our topic, China and America, I mean, you can clearly see the Chinese putting everything on the gold card, while the Americans have been more moving towards the digital card and Bitcoin and stable coins and all this. It's going to be very interesting how this is playing out. I definitely would prefer, if I had to make a decision, I would prefer gold over Bitcoin.
Right.
Simply because it's really free of any third-party risk. You don't need electricity, you don't need internet, you don't need a network. Gold is just gold. But by the way, I mean, there is always so many aspects to it. We talked about Dubai in the beginning. People were, if you would have had a lot of physical gold stacked sitting in a vault in Dubai, you were not able to just take it out and bring it to Europe or wherever you went. But you were able to transport and transfer your money via Bitcoin and stablecoins very quickly. That's exactly what happened. So many of the high net worth people in Dubai basically started getting their hands on Tether and on USDC and also on Bitcoin. And you could even see that in the price of Bitcoin during those initial days of the war. And because that was their way to move their money out of the UAE, right? So there's a lot of advantages and disadvantages for both sectors. And again, like I said before, they complement each other.
Well, we're going to break the seriousness here for a moment, Florian. And I think this is the perfect game for the topic that we've been talking about today. And the game that we're going to play, it's called Build or Break. Now, here's the way the game works. I'm going to throw out a series of statements. You just have to decide quickly whether it builds the current system or breaks it. So don't overthink anything. And of course, humor is always welcome and encouraged, okay? Are you ready? Now, will this break the system or build the system? Massive government money printing. Will it break it or build it?
It will break the system.
Tell me quickly why.
Because it basically destroys the purchasing power, and that destroys the society.
Okay. Now, next one. Rising geopolitical conflict. Break the system or build the system?
It will break the system. I think we touched upon all this as good as we could in this short period of time. Um, we can see probably in real time the breakdown of the US petrodollar system that we have been living through the last 5 decades. It's unclear exactly what will come out of it, what will be next. So I think geopolitical tensions are breaking the system.
Okay. Next one, AI dominance race. Will it break the system or build it? Ooh, stumped you.
It's there's no clear yes or no answer.
Ooh.
I think the older ones like me who still come from the analog good old times, we clearly see all the dangers in a massive AI surveillance system, while young people are completely loving it. If everything's artificial and done by robots and automated and etc. There's pros and cons, I think, on both sides.
Okay.
I don't see yet that mankind really has a better life thanks to AI and robots and all this.
Fair enough. I can get that. Yeah.
But who knows? Let's see. I mean, I don't want to rule it out.
Remember when they said the internet wasn't gonna, it was just a fad? Now look, right? Okay, Florian, next one. Energy supply constraints. Will it build it or break it?
It will break it because we need energy to move, to do business, to do everything, and there's constraints, and if they're increasing, I think it will be much more difficult, and it is obviously moving away from globalization towards national war for commodities, basically.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, the last couple here. Commodity scarcity narratives. Break it or build it?
Rather build it, I think. I mean, commodities is a business sector. It's been, if you go back in the history of mankind, I mean, in many cities got evolved because there has been commodity trading in the end of the day. So I think overall, if we find a peaceful way to trade and move commodities, I think it can build.
Right. Now, out of all of these, Florian, which one actually concerns you the most right now and why?
The one that you mentioned about AI, I think is the most concerning one. Because it feels like everything becomes so absurd. I mean, you don't even know what makes sense. You don't know what's real anymore. Everything seems to be fake. Everything becomes more faster, more data, more information, quicker and quicker. And it seems like we're losing ourselves here. And that's, I think, really concerning. And it's moving so fast in such an overwhelming speed that it is very hard to catch up.
I couldn't agree more. Let's bring this full circle then. When we step back and we look at everything we've talked about, geopolitics, energy control, commodities, Bitcoin, monetary expansion, this doesn't feel like a normal cycle right now. It feels like a transition. So I'll leave you with this. Do you believe the current system can still stabilize itself, or are we already moving into something entirely new, whether markets are ready for it or not?
Yeah, I think we're moving into something new. But I cannot exactly explain to you what it will be because I think there's so many moving parts to it.
Right.
And as you know, I mean, just 5 weeks ago, probably the vast majority on this planet, and especially in the mainstream media, would have told you that, yeah, it's a easy walk in the park, 5 days, and the Americans are done in Iran. And now 6 weeks later, we have a ceasefire deal where basically the Americans have to accept the strength of Iran, and the whole thing has shifted dramatically. And if I would have told you this 2 months ago, nobody would have believed it. So things are moving very quickly and very disruptive. And let's see. I think, unfortunately, this is not the last chapter.
Yeah. This is just the cover of the book still. Florian, every time you come on, you don't just give us insights, you actually shift perspectives. So thank you so much for bringing that back and breaking it down for us. I cannot wait to have you back.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure with you.
And to everyone watching, if there's one thing to take away from today's conversation, it's this. Markets don't move in isolation. They move with power, with policy, and with pressure. And right now, all three are changing right before our eyes very, very fast. Now, here's the disclaimer. Always remember, these are the opinions of our own with possible vested interest in any or all of the companies we may have spoken about. Always be sure to speak with a licensed financial advisor. Know your own risk tolerances as well. This is not to be used as financial advice. For a copy of our complete disclaimer, head over to apaton.com. I'm Lyndsay Malchuk, and this is the Market Leaders Podcast, where we don't just follow the markets, we follow what's moving in it. We'll see you next time.